Good.
Mahamsa Paribhajikacharya Stotra Sata Shri Shrimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribhajikacharya Stotra Sata Shri Shrimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd canto, 26th chapter, 39th verse, which is description of Sankhya Yoga that's been given by Kapila Muni to his mother, Devahuti. Okay. Dravyakriti-tvam gunatha Vyakti sangstatvam cha Tejastvam tejasa sadvi Rupamatrasya vrittah Dravyakriti-tvam gunatha Vyakti sangstatvam cha Tejastvam tejasa sadvi Rupamatrasya vrittayah. Anyone like to chant? Word for word, dravya, of an object. Akrititvam, dimension. Gunata, quality. Vyakti, sangstatvam, individuality. Eva, also. Cha, and. Tejastvam, effulgence. Tejasaha, of fire. Sadvi, O virtuous lady, Rupa Matrasya, of the subtle element form, Vritayaha, the characteristics. Translation. My dear mother, the characteristics of form are understood by dimension, quality, and individuality. The form of fire is appreciated by its effulgence. Purport. Every form that we appreciate has dimensions and characteristics. The quality of a particular object is appreciated by its utility. But the form of sound is independent. Forms which are invisible can be understood only by touch. That is the independent appreciation of invisible form. Visible forms are understood by analytical study of their constitution. The constitution of a certain object is appreciated by its internal action. For example, the form of salt is appreciated by the interaction of salty tastes, and the form of sugar is appreciated by the interaction of sweet tastes. Tastes and qualitative constitution are the basic principles in understanding the form of an object. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sacha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Sacha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, yeah, these are quite straightforward verses. It's very easy to understand, simple. But, yeah, for some, all this discussion of Sankhya philosophy in this chapter, it may seem somewhat like repetitive or kind of, boring. It's like, just discussion again and again of this transformed into that, transformed into that, transforms into that, and then, it does like these few things. But actually, if we can begin to perceive the world through the Sankhya philosophy, it actually becomes very interesting, because we can actually begin to understand things according to, as it says in this verse, their vritti, which vritti literally means like the nature of something, or the nature and the behavior based upon that nature. So it's quite fascinating actually being able to see the world in that way, because then instead of just being dull matter, like this is a piece of wood, but we can begin to actually understand, well, what's the nature of wood? What is it? What are its behaviors? What can it actually do? And in that way you can, actually the material world begins to make a lot more sense, rather than just being like everything's dead, everything's dull. And we can also see how to utilize things in Krishna's service more by understanding their nature and their behavior. So, regarding this point of Sankhya philosophy, Prabhupada says actually in the first purport of this chapter, quoting that, to understand Krishna means to understand Krishna in his personal form with his internal energy, his external energy, his expansions, and his incarnations. So that's quite a important thing that we can take away from Prabhupada's teachings. again and again, if we see his overall mood and his overall instructions that he's given, is that we want to understand Krishna, but that doesn't just mean that we only want to understand some parts of his lila or different esoteric things. We want to understand that. That's the most important. That's our artha pravritti. But we also want to understand his external energy, the way that he pervades the material world, his different ways that he conducts the material energy, how it actually coagulates and forms and creates different manifestations here. And also his expansions, his incarnations. So continuing the purport. There are many diverse departments of knowledge in understanding Krishna. Sankhya philosophy is especially meant for persons who are conditioned by this material world. So that's actually all of us, surprise. It is generally understood by the parampara system, or by disciplic succession, to be the science of devotional service. Preliminary studies of devotional service have already been explained. Now the analytical study of devotional service will be explained by the Lord, who says that by such an analytical study, one becomes freed from the modes of material nature. So this analytical study, it requires a lot of application of intelligence and mental energy, mental strength. So, but this is actually a good thing. Not that as devotees we want to become jnanis, we want to just speculate and basically perform all of our activities very much in a mental platform. But it's good that we have some level of analytical understanding of the world, and especially of our Shastra. Like there's this verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, how does it go? Sudridhamanash, that one. Anyway, Lord Chaitanya is saying that one should not neglect to study the different philosophical conclusions of Shastra. Because if one neglects to study, then their mind will become dull, or intelligence will become dull, and it won't be conducive for your advancement. So one should very seriously, analytically, try and study these things, the conclusions of Shastra, and nature of the material world. And by doing so, one actually begins to understand, they get realization, you could say, of the nature of the world. It doesn't just become book knowledge, like we hear that material world is a dangerous place or whatever. So one who doesn't have experience, they can just take it on book knowledge, but by experiencing, by going out preaching, by coming into contact with challenging elements in the world, then we actually have that experience that, oh yes, at any moment I can fall down, at any moment Krishna can pull the carpet from underneath me, I can be back in square one. And so yeah, it's good to have this very strong study. Yeah, in that way we can actually we can interact with the world, but not become entangled with it or bewildered by it. I was just hearing a class, I think yesterday, Prabhupada was quoting a Bengali saying, which I haven't memorized, but he's saying that, it's a saying that one should fish, but they should not get wet. So what does that mean? That means that one should go to the river or whatever and fish. Obviously, devotees, we wouldn't do this, but it's a Bengali saying, and they like fish generally a lot. So one should, catch fish, all these kind of things, but you shouldn't fall in the water. You shouldn't you shouldn't lose your footing. So as devotees, that's our practice. We want to be able to interact with the world, be able to share Krishna consciousness, be able to give from our stable footing, stable platform, but we don't want to become affected. We don't want to fall in the water, so to speak. So, yeah, in this verse and in this chapter, we're especially seeing the different qualities of elements in this world, like sound, ether, water, fire, earth, all these different things, and how they manifest from each other, how they progressively expand. And I thought what Prabhupada said in this verse regarding all these things, how to understand actually a particular element or a particular thing or even a particular person. This is actually the practice of Sankhya Yoga, being able to understand what's the essence of something, what's the essence of something and how is it related to other things, how does it interact. So Prabhupada says in the purport, the constitution of a certain object is appreciated by its internal action. So breaking that up, constitution in this sense basically means the swarup lakshana, or you could say what something is really made of, the very essence of something. And it's appreciated by its internal action, which you could also break up, meaning it's like dharma. It's behavior according to its nature. So essentially that means that the different forms or the different properties, the different created living entities, everything within this world, its success in life is actually based upon following the dharma or the internal, natural, you could say, behavior or position that is meant to have. That we're actually, for example, water is meant to be wet. If water was dry, it's a failure water. It's a, you could say, a blooped water. It's not fulfilling its dharma. It's not fulfilling its position. So I thought it would be good if we kind of also thought a little more deeply, get interactive. So if everyone could think of one thing or person or quality or whatever, not just necessarily dull matter, but also could be living. So what's one thing and what's the dharma of that thing? What's the essential quality? So we'll start with Connor. Already two were mentioned in the purport, which makes it easy. Water. Yes, quench thirst and wet. So Connor, what is... Yeah, food to quench hunger. Sugar is sweet. Oh, I stole it. And one more. Heat and light, yeah. I think of another one. Anything? Yeah, we have to think sometimes. These things are, it's actually very interesting when you start contemplating on these things, the nature of different things. So. Yeah, exactly. That was actually going to be my concluding one if no one else got it. That's nice. Anyone else? Making you guys work too hard. Well, a few that I found which were interesting was, for example, the ultimate characteristic of bhakti. I'm giving it away, but what's the Swarup Lakshana of bhakti? Yeah, but there's a specific one mentioned in Shastra. Anyone? Uh-huh. That's one. There's also, yeah. Krishnaka Sharana is described as the most, you could say, core. Krishnaka Sharana means one-pointed surrender to Krishna. So the main or the most internal characteristic of a devotee is they're completely surrendered to Krishna. They're not, they don't still have some attachment to some devas, some demigods, or they don't, have some doubts. Well, what if I just kept working my job and went to Burger King or whatever? It's complete surrender to Krishna. So it's the internal characteristic of bhakti. And of the devotee, of course, we know there's many characteristics. I was thinking also the characteristics of a spiritual master, which is very interesting. It's summarized and it's from Hari Bhakti Vilas. There's many, I'll just read a few. He should be knowledgeable of the Vedas. He knows the conclusions of the scriptures. He's absorbed in worship of the Lord by chanting his holy names. He's peaceful, fully satisfied in activities of devotional service, has deep faith in the Lord, exhibits all good qualities, is intelligent, steady, austere, and truthful, is sweet in speech. Interesting. Expert in conducting himself as a saintly person, sadachar. Expert in arguing with and defeating those opposed to devotional service. He's an expert judge. He's grateful for services rendered to him. He's capable of showing both favor and reprimanding another person, and always anxious for the welfare of all living entities. There's so many more, but that's just a few. So those are some characteristics of a spiritual master. And upon researching, I was thinking also, even just because this is kind of extends the principle of Sankhya, of actually applying it in our everyday life. Not that it's just some far philosophical concept, but just when we're interacting with the world, we can see, this is, a man, he should generally kind of behave like this. This is a woman, they behave like this. This is a dog, behaves like this. This is a tree, it behaves like this. So and actually the Vishnu Purana, also the Mahabharata, but this is from Vishnu Purana, there's 32 ideal qualities of what the man or male should be in human society. So I'll just read a few of them. But Sundara, beautiful. Aishwarya, wealthy. Chama, forgiveness. Dharma, righteous. Jnana, knowledgeable. Driti, patient. Yasha, fame, famous. Pragya, wisdom. Anasuya, non-attachment. Bala, strength. Sankalpa, determined. Virya, courageous or courage. Dhairya, fortitude. Daya, mercy. Arjava, sincerity. Tyaga, renunciation. Satya, responsibility. And many more. But these are just, you could say judges of if someone is performing their dharma or their natural position that they're meant to be. It's considered if you're a success materially. Of course, spiritually, on the spiritual platform, someone may not have any of these things, but if they have one-pointed surrender to Krishna, then it makes up for everything else. But we have to ask, do we have one-pointed surrender yet? Most of us, it's quite a challenge. And and also for characteristics of women in chapter 10, Opulence of the Absolute, text 34, Krishna describes the ideal female. He says, among women, I am fame, fortune, speech, memory, intelligence, faithfulness, and patience. And he describes also in other places that, what were they? Yeah, shyness and chastity, Prabhupada says, are ideal qualities for women. So, yeah, these are all interesting things we can, while interacting with the world, observe how they behave, or how the different living entities or different elements of nature, how they are interacting, how they act like that. So, yeah. You can also see in Shastra, for example, the qualities of Krishna and Radharani. Those are described in Shastra. It's very long and a little esoteric, so I won't go into it. But it really helps us understand more internally about people when we understand these things. Like when we read about, for example, Srimati Radharani's qualities, it actually helps us connect with her. That, oh, she's a person. She's not just, some mythology or some far-out esoteric idea, but she's actually a person. She actually has all of these wonderful qualities, all of these wonderful activities and behaviors that she displays for Krishna's pleasure. And the same thing for Krishna, he has all of that. So this is the nice and very sweet thing about Krishna consciousness, is it's personal. That's what we're actually hankering for at every moment. We want some personal interaction, some rasa. And if we can't actually connect, if we can't see the nature or the real internal aspect of different people and different things in the world, it won't satisfy us, because we just see that, this is coming here, this is going there, this is a dog, this is, wood, this is this is that. But being able to understand the interrelation of these things with Krishna and his service, it actually gives us much more of a deep understanding and appreciation. So if there's any discussion, we can open up here, because it's very straightforward verse. It's not much to expand upon. If anyone has any comments or questions, Margie? Or wait for the microphone, yeah.
Haribo, Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the class. I really appreciate all the references to Srila Prabhupada and Shastra. That was nice. So you mentioned in the beginning of the class that we should, this point of studying Sankhya philosophy is to understand Krishna's external energy. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if we just focus on Krishna's internal energy, understanding this, will we then be able to understand his external energy without having to independently study that?
Well, technically yes, but the issue is that, as Prabhupada was saying, we're all materially contaminated. So generally that's, it's like trying to, how do you say? It's like trying to jump a few steps, to a higher platform. But for almost everyone, you have to have a basic foundation of detachment from the material world, understanding, we're not the enjoyer, we're not God, all these things, because that's our nature. Since we're conditioned, we all think that we're the Purusha, or the enjoyer, but actually we're all Prakriti, we're all the enjoyed. So, yeah, for example, if someone can exclusively and 24 hours a day chant the holy name, like in a secluded place, then yes, you don't need to think about, studying all these kind of things and um, developing the sense of detachment or renunciation, understanding the material world is a dangerous place, then yes. But for the majority of people, we do have to understand also the external. Whereas Prabhupada just saying that. But yeah, it was in this purport or in the first purport that, yeah, I believe it was in the first purport of this chapter. It was basically saying that by, or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, sorry, was saying that by studying this external energy, one becomes free from the modes of nature. So of course that doesn't mean, free from the modes of nature doesn't mean pure devotional service. That doesn't mean prema bhakti, but that means that you can actually reach up to the platform of prema bhakti, being freed from the modes of nature. So it's like understanding these things and studying these things, it's like building a stepping platform by which you can more easily engage in devotional service or more easily make rapid advancement and attain higher levels of spiritual consciousness.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That makes sense. I do have another question, if that's okay, unless someone else has.
Mm-hmm.
You can read 7.2 Bhagavatam, the Lord says, you need to have material and spiritual knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Simultaneous. Mm-hmm.
Okay. 17. Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of this in reference to like when we try to understand ourselves, we have to do like focus internally, but we cannot solely do that. We have to understand ourselves in relation to the world, the external world. So thank you. I do have a question on Prabhupada's comment in the purport where he says that forms which are invisible can be understood only by touch. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I read that and not really much came as what that means.
Okay.
Maybe if someone else has some more of an idea.
I was thinking like maybe if sound it touches the eardrum, then that is considered, but I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't quite deliberate on that too much. I couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just one other question. So you were talking about, I like that you mentioned this, a devotee is defined, like the Dharma is defined as, you said focused surrender unto Lord Shri Krishna?
Yeah, one-pointed.
One-pointed, thank you. And so I'm curious, when I'm looking at like Hanuman devotees, they feel they're surrendered, like they're not specifically surrendered to Krishna, they're just like, they want to serve everybody and everything, but I wouldn't say that they are necessarily surrendered unto Krishna, like one-pointed. So what does that look like? Because there's this loving devotional service coming from them that's so beautiful, but it's like, I don't know, it's not one-pointed on Krishna.
What was you were saying devotees of Hanuman, or you're saying Hanuman?
Devotees of Hanuman, like
Devotees
I've met
of
those devotees that they're specifically dedicated to the form of Hanuman or Lord Sri Ram, you know? So in that sense, I guess it's...
Also, you were saying devotees of Ram?
They kind of consider themselves devotees of Hanuman, like they worship Hanuman because of his love for Lord Sri Ram,
Right.
you know? So they kind of embody that mood of just service to any and everybody. And
Well, I mean, there's multiple things. I mean, again, it depends on the consciousness, but if someone is serving a great devotee of the Lord, then of course you get spiritual advancement, but it really depends on your consciousness. For example, many people worship Hanuman thinking that Hanuman is the supreme personality of Godhead, in which case, yeah, it's a mistake, and it's actually not very pleasing to Hanuman. It's like if someone came to you and was offering Govindam prayers and, please accept my obeisance, please, it's yeah, it's not exactly pleasing for the devotee, but yeah, if one is genuinely trying to worship the dear devotee of the Lord, understanding at the same time that, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or his incarnations like Ram, then, yeah, of course, Tadyanam Samarchanam, one who's serving that which is very dear to the Lord, is actually performing more dear service than worshipping the Lord himself. Yeah, though, you have to be careful, though, also where you apply that, because from my experience, not very many people actually worship a deva or demigod or things like that with the understanding that they're a very intimate and dear servant of Ram or Krishna or so on and so forth. It's possible, but it's quite rare. A lot of the time it's based on the misconception of Panchopasana or Yatama Tatapat, that whatever you worship, whatever you do, that's your, that's perfect. You'll go, it's all the same goal, Or if you worship any god, it doesn't matter which one, just pick one, pick it out of the hat and start worshiping, then you get the same benefit. But it doesn't exactly work like that. So, yeah, it's a bit of again, it depends upon the individual specific circumstance. It's very...
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
When you asked that, what Prabhupada wrote about you were asking about the invisible, an element that's invisible can only be received by touch. I think Prabhupada's referring to wind, specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Wind.
That would make sense, yeah. That would make sense. I was thinking also the mind. The mind technically is invisible. It's a subtle element, but still we can always be in touch with it. We can always feel it. We can always, we're in contact with it. We can tell it's there, but it's invisible. So I guess, yeah, there's many things which are invisible, but they're still material. We can still understand they're there through different means. Okay, if there's nothing else, we can finish here. Okay, Granth Srimad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki